Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Trending in the AM live here on DSM Media. The Phillies steal game one in San Diego in a 2-0 shutout behind the arm of Zach Wheeler. The Sixers fall short to the Boston Celtics. We'll get into that. And the Flyers, Jason, the Flyers come from behind in Tampa to win 3-2 over the Lightning. They start out 3-0. Phil doesn't allow much Flyers talk on here, but I'm going to let you talk Flyers this morning. That and much, much more when we are back in 30 seconds.
Holding gets around in front. And Philadelphia has it.
What is going on, everybody? What another spectacular night in Philadelphia sports. Philly sports teams are 7-1 since October 13th. Jason, I am filling in for Phil Stifle today. I'm Dylan Davis at DylanJD98 on Twitter. To my right, one of the regular co-hosts here on Trending in the AM, my man Jason Voorhees. Check him out on Twitter at Mustaine3651. If you guys are new to the channel, head on over to at DSM_media on Twitter. Hit that follow button. We greatly appreciate it. And while you're on the page, check out the link tree in our bio. It'll take you to every social media platform we are available on. If you guys want to be interactive on today's show, give us your thoughts, comments, questions, predictions for game 2 tonight. Head on over to the Facebook, or more specifically, the YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button, like this video, whatever you guys got to do. We're on the road to 700 YouTube subscribers. We greatly appreciate each and every one of you. Jason, the Phillies cap, the Phillies hoodies, it feels good, man. It is, like Kyle's saying, a red October. How are you feeling on this Wednesday morning?
I mean, I couldn't feel better. Obviously, the only blemish was the Sixers, but it's game one, so I can't really get upset about a game one game in the NBA.
Correct. Some people will.
No, listen, I get that. We hang on every single game. I get that. That's Philly. That's why we're such a passionate. That's why we're the best fan base in America. Yep. We are. We really are. And you're seeing it. Like in 1980. All 4 teams went to the finals, and this kind of has that vibe. It's just that weird. I don't think it's ever happened since then. We're one of the few cities that has 4 professional sports teams. So that's what makes it so, so beautiful. And I mean, the Phillies winning game 1. I mean, you talked about it on. We did multiple preview shows. Obviously, you had the pregame show yesterday, and you reiterated it. If the Phillies take game 1, they could literally take this series in 5 because of the nature of when you go up 1-0 in any series. I get that the NLCS is now 7 games, so it's more important in a 5-game series because it's like you can only there's only one room for small error, but. To win game 1 is huge, and to win it the way they won it, you now saw another layer to this team. We won a very short, close game.
Yeah,
it wasn't a lopsided score like we Listen, there was 4 hits,
4 combined
hits, entire game,
and what 2 or 3 walks combined, 3 maybe 4 walks combined. There were not a lot of run. There was not a lot of high stress innings in terms of work on the mound for Wheeler and Yu Darvish. Both of the runs, obviously, like I know Spoltz and them were talking about on the broadcast, like in the NLCS, in the MLB playoffs, like solo home runs are the key. They're if you're the pitcher, you're okay giving up solo home runs. It's when you get traffic on the base paths, you want to limit the long ball. But it's all it took last night. From the Phillies, man. So we'll get to Zach Wheeler in a second, but I want to start with the 2 home runs. Bryce Harper starts things off. I forget what inning it was, maybe the 4th inning or so, and takes one opposite field. That was one of the highest opposite field hit home runs I've ever seen. Was it going to get out? Was it not going to get out? And then ultimately, it's too far over the wall in left field. So that kind of sets the tone, gets everything going. Zach Wheeler's dealing. But then, my goodness. This right here was I know players said from the dugout, so that even speaks volumes, was the hardest hit ball I've ever seen. 120 mile per hour exit velo and 488 foot nuke, Jason. Now, tell me, so obviously Schwarber walked his first at bat. He singled his second at bat, and it set the plate. It set the tone for that at bat. Is Kyle Schwarber back? And if so, how big is that for the rest of the series?
I mean, it's you can't quantify how big it is because you look at the success they had in the St. Louis and Braves series with him not really, making any real impact. I mean, obviously he walked and he was
a couple sack flies.
He's an impact in the field. He's an impact, in the dugout, in the locker room
as the leader.
But as far as him being an offensive presence, I mean, listen, they talked about it, how he really he spent the last couple days with the hitting coach,
Kevin
Long, and they were kind of focusing in on just his confidence. And he said that, like, Kevin Long, like I heard A-Rod interview him. I don't know if you watched, like, after the I know some people just turn the game off because you're tired.
I watched the NBC Sports Philly one. I can't after the wild card series. I can't listen to Alex Rodriguez talking.
And you know what? I'm almost in the same boat, but I do like Big Papi. Funny. So, but
Shane rolls on the one show.
To be listening to it, and A-Rod actually, I guess A-Rod was coached by Kevin Long, so he kind of has a history with him. And
okay.
He asked Schwarber about it. And Schwarber's answer was basically like, every time he works with Kevin Long, he believes he's going to get 2 hits. Like after that session is done, and lo and behold, he gets 2 hits, and he gets one that's 488 moonshot. Like, I mean, like you said, we could talk about all the home runs in this postseason. Like the Rhys Hoskins one obviously comes to mind because of like
the reaction
and the bat flip,
the celebration.
But like, I've never seen. I know it's like the 4th. I think it was the 4th longest home run ever in Statcast history. Yeah. It was the 1st longest ever in postseason history. But it was the hardest and longest I've ever seen. Like Bryce Harper's reaction should tell you all you need to know.
Yeah,
it's Harper. That is classic. That will be a meme 20 years from now, dude.
Yeah. No, it was awesome. And to me, it doesn't only get Kyle Schwarber going. And, maybe this is just my personal opinion, but a ball hit like that, a home run hit like that is a tone setter. Game 1 on the road, I'm taking your heart. And again, there was nobody on the base path. It was a solo home run. That's the goal if you're Yu Darvish and that Padre pitching staff. But nonetheless, it's all it took last night. Phillies had 3 hits. 2 solo home runs, and Schwarber had a single. And Schwarber walked. That was it, man. And I thought what you said earlier was beautiful. Basically about, like, Schwarber hadn't been getting going before last night, and they were still winning. This Phillies team and this offense has proven to you that they can beat you in multiple different ways and fashions throughout this postseason. So that's something I'm going to keep looking forward to. They're never out of a game. They're down 2-0 in the top of the 9th. They're able to come back. They're down early in the game. They're able to come back. If they're up early in the game, they're not giving a lead up. They can win big. They can win by 1 or 2. Like, they're beating teams so many different styles and in so many different ways so far in the playoffs that it just continues to layer on confidence when you're thinking about moving forward. On the other side of things, we got to talk about Zach Wheeler's performance because, like, the Sixers are on. I had the 2 TV set up, and it almost, like, took away from the ridiculous performance I saw on the bump last night from the Phillies ace. Like, that was as close to a Roy Halladay no against the Reds as you can get, dude. He walked Soto once and allowed a single up the middle. That was it. They couldn't touch him through 7. 83 pitches. Like, that was such an amazing, such an ace start from Zach Wheeler. And what did we talk about the last couple of shows, as you mentioned? Zach Wheeler bouncing back from not a bad start by any stretch of the imagination, but a bad inning. Couldn't get the final out. There was an error. It gives up 3 runs. How does he bounce back? He bounces back in a big way. But then Rob Thompson has this moment where he decides to pull Zach Wheeler after 7 with only 83 pitches thrown, 1 walk and 1 hit allowed, as I said, no runs, of course. And he brings in Sir Anthony Dominguez. Sir Anthony Dominguez comes in. A lot of people, including myself, are questioning the move to pull Wheeler. Sir Anthony comes in. Quick 1, 2, 3, throws 8 or 9 pitches. Then he goes to Alvarado. Now, listen, Alvarado has been spectacular outside of the 1 home run he gave up in Game 1 against the Cardinals in the postseason. And ever since he's come back from his AAA assignment. But they got out of it. It was scary. There was an error in the field. He walked, the second batter of the inning. I'm confused by the logic here. So help me understand it. Like, again, it's funny. Philly Rob makes no mistakes. They won the game. Clearly, it doesn't matter. But to pull Wheeler, and I know him and Wheeler talked and his velocity was dipping. I don't buy it. To pull Wheeler was wrong. B, to throw Sir Anthony in the 8th and not the 9th was wrong. C, to see what Sir Anthony did with 9 pitches and not allow him to throw the 9th was wrong. It worked out, but I did not agree with any of the logic that Rob Thompson had last night.
Listen, you probably saw my tweet. I was extremely.
I disagree completely. I was
extremely pissed off. And listen, after the game was over, I still don't agree with the move. I don't either. Baseball.
It worked. Listen, this is it. At the end, they won the game. That's it. I get it. I'm extremely happy. I just don't understand the logic behind what he was doing.
And that's a good point. You can't argue logic when it worked. But
right.
Let's be realistic here about Zach Wheeler. And we can gush all we want. It was one of the best postseason starts I've ever witnessed by a Phillies pitcher, besides Drew Holiday. I watched, obviously, the perfect game. Or the no-hitter, I'm sorry.
Right.
It was 1 walk. But let's look at Zach Wheeler, through this entire postseason. Yeah, he had 1 bad inning, but don't forget, he would have got out of that inning with no runs. Rhys Hoskins had the error, and that led to the 3 runs.
Correct.
Those runs, there was an argument. I heard someone talking about it, that those runs should have been unearned. And listen, at the end of the day, stats are stats. It doesn't matter. But realistically, Zach Wheeler at this point could be 19 innings with no runs, earned runs. The guy is throwing better than I've ever seen. And I really want to go back a little bit, because I think the key moment was when this team shut him down. And I remember a lot of us, we had no idea at that time what was going on, because the report didn't come out until 2 weeks later that this is just something he goes through every year, and they wanted to err on the side of caution to kind of get him right. Dude, I remember I was thinking there was a point in time where I was worried he wasn't going to be back.
Yeah.
And how big of a decision was that they made that in season, knowing that they were still chasing the wild card, and they had the audacity and
the cojones
to make that kind of a decision. That's another thing that we're not really talking about enough. And now you're seeing it pay dividends. Dude, Zach Wheeler's got a .52 whip. I know a lot of people call ERA the stat. I look at whip, which is walks, hits per 9.
Hitters, yeah.
He has a .52 whip, dude. He's tearing it up. And I said it. I don't want to brag, but I said that before this postseason started, yes, the Phillies offense has the ability to put up crooked numbers on anybody. They can play with the best of them.
Right.
But I said, out of any of the teams coming into the dance, the Phillies had the best 1-2 at the top besides the Mets, because you could say DeGrom and Scherzer, but obviously they didn't pan out. But I'm saying on paper, our 1 and 2 is one of the best in baseball, and this is where it's helping you. And listen, Darvish, he had a great game too.
He delivered, man.
But the key is, a lot of times I look at guys when they're throwing strikeouts, it makes them work.
Oh, yeah.
And
the Phillies plate approach early on was something else. I'm not saying it makes him
tired per se, because he went 7 innings. But the key to that is that in the first inning, he had a horrible inning. It was his worst inning of the game, as opposed to Zach Wheeler, who was in the same boat. They both had over 20 pitches in the first inning, but after that, they settled in. But I looked at Zach Wheeler's body of work compared to Yu Darvish, and it was more efficient. They had almost the same numbers, besides, obviously, Darvish gave up the 2 solo home runs. But the difference was Zach Wheeler is more efficient. He had like 3 innings where it was 9-pitch innings.
Agreed. And there were a lot of first pitch ground out and flyouts last night made by San Diego. The last thing on the Zach Wheeler thing, listen, man, I get it, but he was only at 83. Like, you're talking like 90. That's another inning possibly. And then I don't think they were making more contact. Slightly, they got the hit later in the game. I get that. His last at bat, he made Juan Soto look like he didn't know how to swing a baseball bat. So he still had the stuff. So listen, who am I to go against Topper, right? In Topper, we trust. It worked out again. Whatever this man touches seems to turn into gold. So I'm incredibly happy with how the game played out. This is my final point about the lineup, man. Like, 100%, Yu Darvish was on one last night. He was battling back and forth with Zach Wheeler outside of the 2 home runs by Harper and Schwarber, right? You're not going to get a better pitching performance against this Phillies lineup, and they still came away with a victory, Jason. Like, Blake Snell, Kyle's hitting here. Snell's 0-2 with 7 earned against the Phillies this year. He's only going 9 1/3. Yeah, like you're not going to get another Yu Darvish, 8, 9 strikeouts, whatever it was, a 3-hit baseball against this Phillies lineup. It's just not going to happen. And they were still able to win the ball game.
Bryce Harper revenge game. The last time Bryce Harper faced San Diego, besides last night, he was hit on his hand by Blake Snell. Yeah. So, yeah, I agree. I think you're on to something here.
Don't let it happen. That's what I say. Do not let the Fightins come back 2-0 to Citizens Bank Park this weekend. Just, the dude's got 3 straight games with a ball. Like, Bryce, I said this yesterday to you. His streaks, his hot streaks, don't fade out quickly. They go on for weeks at a time, and it is the absolute perfect timing. Schwarber, we don't know if last night's going to translate to today. We're going to find out at 4:35. But if Schwarber gets going with what Bryce is doing, and let's just say last night was an anomaly, like where JT, Reese, and Bohm, and Segura, and nobody else hits, which is an anomaly in this lineup, Castellanos, this team is going to be locked and loaded at home this weekend against this Padres rotation.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you really look at the game script and how it went, it's really nothing new at Petco Park, because the Padres actually have been involved in a lot of games like this where it's good pitching. They don't score a ton of runs. The Padres have a good lineup, but their lineup at home as opposed to on the road, the splits is like insane difference. Like, it's crazy differential. They don't score a lot of runs at Petco, but the reason that they won, they actually, I think, were the second. I think the Phillies were the first, or maybe they were the first in walk-off wins. The reason for that is because it is loud in that building. I will give them that. And the fans there, I mean, obviously, I'm not comparing them to us, but they did. I was proud of, like, their fans. You can't say, like, oh, wow, we talk about how bad the Braves fans were and the Cardinals fans when they left the game in a game that they could have won. I mean, you got to give them some credit. I'll give the fans credit because it was loud. But that stadium, it's not a hitter's park. So I kind of expect these kind of games where it's lower scoring. And let's face it, I think now that you won a 2-0 game, pretty much we've won in every single style. I mean, we had a 9-1 game against the Braves. we had a game in which we were down to our final out against the Cardinals in game 1, and we won that in the 9th inning with a walk-off 6-3. Well, it wasn't a walk-off, but because it was away.
Right. Get the point.
But you get the point. And, now we've won a 2-0 game against the team in the NLCS. I mean, with our best pitcher on the mound, with, by the way, a pitcher that's been comparable to Zach Wheeler as far as in postseason.
Sure.
Aaron Nola going tonight.
For sure, man. So let's get into tonight's matchup. We have Aaron Nola on the mound versus Blake Snell, who has not had a lot of success versus this Phillies lineup this season. And like I said to you, like I said to everybody in the past couple of days, that the Phillies got game 1, I believe. So here's my prediction that they take game 2. I think the Phillies come back to Citizens Bank Park 2-0 in this series because I think Aaron Nola is that dialed in. Now, it's always scary, right? You always have that weary. Nola's got 3-4 straight dominant starts under his sleeve. Where's the blooper? Where's the little letdown game, right? Could it be here in the NLCS? I don't think so, man. Like, I think he is. We know the September woes. Brother, it ain't September. It's October. And his motor and his energy, his facial expression, he seems to be built for the kind of big moments, which goes against everything we've ever known in him in September when they needed to get into the postseason. But now that they're here and that stress of not making the playoffs is gone, I feel like he's so dialed in. My man Kyle, always with the numbers. Aaron Nola, 19 1/3 against the Padres, I'm assuming this year. 0 earned runs, as somebody brought up yesterday to me.
George Ryder, that his last game against San Diego
was the no-hitter in the 8th
through 8 innings. And I think he ended with a shutout.
100%, man. So let's get into this game tonight. And his last 3 starts, excuse me. So that's not against San Diego. But nonetheless, I'm pretty sure his last start against San Diego, he had great success. But yes, he is dialed in, Kyle. So let's get into tonight. Game script. How can the Phillies be successful, Jason? They're going to score more runs. Both teams, like the Padres, are not getting shut out again. So ultimately, what does that mean? The Phillies got to score more runs to beat them, right? So the plate approach will definitely be different. Blake Snell does not have the same stuff as Yu Darvish does. He does not have the breaking stuff, the off-speed stuff that's going to freeze these Phillies hitters when 95 comes down the pipe, that they're just leaving the bat on their shoulders. I think the Phillies lineup will show up tonight. I think Kyle Schwarber is getting hot, and I think Bryce Harper is already hot. This game is on Aaron Nola, and it's on the bullpen. How great is it? We threw Sir Anthony for 9 pitches. Alvarado got the save. Sir Anthony's fresh. You haven't used Eflin in a couple days. But you didn't have to use Brad Hand. Robertson's back. You didn't have to use him. There's a lot of late inning guys waiting for their turn, waiting for their name to be called in that bullpen, Jason. So what does Aaron Nola have to do for a successful day, knowing that those guys are back there? Obviously, we always want to say, oh, if he can get into the 8th, like, of course, like what Zach Wheeler did is always the goal. But to you, is 6 innings, is 6 1/3. What's Aaron Nola's successful night looking like to you?
I'm not going to say what I like. I'm going to say what I expect. Mm-hmm. I expect Aaron Nola will go 7 innings. I think it's going to be as you said, there's going to be some runs, but I still think it's going to be a low scoring game because I don't think it's going to end up a blowout unless it does become so late, like when the bullpen is in. But my feel is that Aaron Nola goes 7. I think he'll have a game on par with what Wheeler did last night. I think he will give up a run or two. I just have that feeling that he's not going to keep this shutout thing going. Like, I think he's going to give up a run or two, and I think they get the W.
7 innings, 1 earned.
That's about exactly.
Walk, 9 Ks incoming from Knowles tonight. This, again, we keep talking about, and of course, each round you advance, it becomes the bigger and bigger start. But once again, we are on about game number 4 or 5 now, where this is now Aaron Nola's biggest start of his career. You had the opportunity in Atlanta to go up 2-0 and come home, and everyone freaked out, and I didn't, and they end up taking care of business. But this, to me, this is the one in a 7-game set where it's even more important. And all the pressure is being applied to San Diego right now. Because my prediction was what, Jason? Phillies in 5. Don't let it go back to San Diego. You lose today, I find it very hard to believe they're going to be able to take all 3 at Citizens Bank Park. It's not impossible, but that's what would have to happen for it not to go back across the country to Petco Park. So winning today, you only need 2 of 3 at the bank. And that, my friend, will happen. Kyle going with a Phil's win, 5-1. I like the Phillies to win tonight too, man. It's not that difficult. They've shown you that they can win in multiple different styles, as you said earlier on in the show. They're coming off a 2-0 victory last night. I think the Padres are going to score, as you said. Maybe I'm going to go with Knowles, 2 runs, right? 2, maybe 3. Maybe the Padres get 3 in the game, maybe 1 by the bullpen. But against Blake Snell, I think they get to him semi-early. I don't think Blake Snell gets into the 6th inning tonight. I think he's out by like somewhere in the 5th or a little before the 5th inning. I think the Phillies hang a crooked number on them. I'm going to go Phillies win 5-2 or 5-3. I'll go 5-3 as my final prediction, but I think Nola gets into the 7th. I don't know if he finishes 7, but 6 1/3, 6 2/3, somewhere around there. A lot of Ks, a lot of mixed bats. I'll go with at least 7 or 8 strikeouts for Knowles. And if you had to give me a player of the game, who would you give me?
So I think all the bats have been kind of awoke now, so to speak, with Kyle Schwarber kind of coming out. I'm actually going to go with JT tonight. I think JT is going to go deep, and I have a feeling that he's going to have a couple hits, maybe 2 or even 3 hits. I think JT is streaky, just like Harper, to the point where he comes out at his is a lot less lengthy than Harper. Like, he might have a game where he has 3 hits. And even though JT's average is not, at the top right now, he still has had a lot of good moments in this postseason. I think a JT game coming.
JT's been humongous this postseason. Like you said, obviously he's coming off of a no-hit at the box yesterday, but literally 7 guys were no-hit for the Phillies outside of Harper and Schwarber, right? Here's one for you. Nick Castellanos takes one deep tonight. I'm feeling that brick business wall out in left field with the short porches. But maybe he takes one to center. I think Castellanos gets a hold of one tonight against Blake Snell. And they just have so many options to get hot. Hopefully at least 2 of them and Bryson Schwarber are already there. Phillies win. The comments are loaded with Fightins wins. Get your popcorn ready, fellas, because 4:35 first pitch, and hopefully by the end of the night, the Phillies are coming home up 2-0 back to Philadelphia, and this city will light on fire. With that being said, a quick break in the action as DSM Media is proudly brought to you by Gents Barber Lounge. Check out one of 2 great locations in Fishtown and Old City and book your appointment today. Gents owns the craft, and it shows. Rated the #1 barbershop on Yelp in the Philadelphia area, having multiple award-winning barbers and being able to handle any style of cut, adult or kid. Take a look at some of Gents' work. Check them out at gentsbarberlounge.com to book your appointment today. Again, that is www.gentsbarberlounge.com to book your appointment today. Fishtown or Old City location. Both JT and Hoskins homered off Snell this season. Hopefully at least one of them can do it here tonight. Obviously, we would all love to say Bryce with the revenge game in the hand against Snell. Bryce homered in 3 straight, man. He's got 4. He leads the postseason with 4 home runs so far. So it's hard to keep predicting him to come away with a win, but we can hope. Jason, let's get away from the Phillies for a second. We can always come back to them towards the end of the show if we want to, right? If there's something else pops in our mind for today. I got to talk Flyers with you. Midway point. Phil doesn't do it. Honestly, I don't do it. I told you the other day. I probably couldn't tell you who's on the 3rd and 4th line for this Flyers team at the moment. Last night, I would have loved to see them beat the Tampa Bay Lightning. I had 2 priorities ahead of them, NLCS and the Sixers opener. So I didn't see them win. But I know that they were down 2-1 in the 3rd period. against Tampa and came back and won 3-2. The Philadelphia Flyers are 3-0 for the first time since the 2011-2012 season. Jason, what the hell's going on with this team? What is up with the Flyers?
John Tortorella is going on with this team. I you know me, man. I'm a diehard, but I really soured last year. Like a lot of, like 90% of Philly. I mean, we were given a piss poor product. But the one thing I said when they signed John Tortorella was that regardless of stats, regardless of wins and losses, the one thing that I wanted to see from this team, and the one thing that I had every reason to believe I would see, is that this team would have heart at the core, because that's what John Tortorella does. He breaks down his team. And he calls people out. If people aren't doing what they're supposed to do, he addresses it. He holds them accountable, which is a number one thing that we see in a lot of teams in this city where coaches don't do that. Joe Girardi was one that comes to mind. The funny thing about the Flyers is that it just goes to show you that you don't necessarily need superstar elite players to play good hockey. You need a good coach and you need a good system. Yes, you need players that know how to play, but more so importantly to me, I think hockey's the one sport where, because if you think about it, when they're on the ice, it's very demanding, that sport, in that it's a very physical sport.
Oh yeah.
You need
the shifts are a minute or less for a reason.
Yeah, so you need a team that's physical, that provides that physical presence on the ice, and you need a team that has leadership. And we said it in baseball, it's the same in hockey. If you don't have players in your locker room that are leaders, then you need a coach that's a strong leader and that is willing to call people out when they're not doing right. And you're seeing it on the ice. Travis Konechny is one of my most, I don't want to say hate because that's a strong word, but Travis Konechny is one of the guys where I've just said I want him out. I think he needs a fresh start, yada, yada, yada. He's just a guy that has not lived up to his potential.
Correct.
It's an early, but the guy's got 3 goals and 1 assist. He has 4 points. He's tied for the league. He's tied for the team in points. It's not a coincidence that John Tortorella is here, and I'm seeing this because now it's showing me that everything that I thought is true, that the Flyers coaching staff, the Flyers people that they had in leadership was soft. You cannot have that with the athletes that they have on this team. You need a guy that's driving the bus. And the guy ultimately that's driving the bus, Carter Hart. And I said it, and I'll say it again.
2 goals per, man.
He is and will be the most important player for the Flyers. He's their franchise goalie. We've talked about the history of ineptitude at Flyers goaltending. And Carter Hart is playing like the Carter Hart we saw. Now, it's early. Like I said, it's 3 games. But, yes, we are allowed to get excited about this team. So,
100%, man. Everything you said hits home with me in terms of torch, because I've not seen a lot of Flyers through the first 3 games, which is rare for me, man. Like you flash back to last year, I left work immediately to head across the street to meet family at the bar to get there for the Flyers opener, to see, bought the Ryan Ellis t-shirt to get over there because I was so pumped up for this season. And the letdown, especially with the way the Phillies are playing and the Eagles, and it was a 6th opener, it's just so hard to buy into that mess of an organization so far. But you're right. When you talk about John Tortorella coming in here, and some people loved it, some people hated it. But one thing he was going to do, and he said it from day one into training camp, was if you don't see a guy on the ice that you would normally see, that's because he's not giving me 110% effort. So if you're not going to be shortchanged on effort and heart and hustle this season, Freddie, always thought highly of TK, but last year just soured me on everyone 100%. But the thing is, Jason, you bring up accountability and you bring up leadership, and you said one important thing to me. If you don't have leadership on the ice, you need to have it behind the bench or with your manager or head coach. There's a reason there's not a C on anyone's sweater right now. And he said he might not give one out all year. You want to talk about holding leadership to the highest standard and holding guys accountable. If you want this C, you're going to have to come and earn it and take it out of my hand and prove to me that you're deserving of being the captain or the assistant captain on this team. It seems crazy, right? That just doesn't happen. When does a team go into the season, go 3 games into the season, possibly go midway through the season and not have a freaking captain? It's so far, he's pushing the right buttons, man. He has them playing hard. The win against Tampa, 3 games, extremely small sample size. But you beat New Jersey, you beat the Canucks. I know Tampa was 1-2 heading into last night or 1-3 heading, I forget, but they're a very, very good hockey team. There's a reason we're on the verge. They're a freaking dynasty possibly in the NHL. You go down there and beat them on national TV with a come from behind victory in the 3rd period. That's huge, man. That's freaking huge. So am I bought in? No, I need a little bit more time to heal and to actually see that this team is for real. Give me another week or 2. And the Flyers are still playing competitive hockey and still finding ways to win games. I'll be tuned in.
So I talked about Tortorella. The other guy, the player that they brought in that right now I think is making the biggest difference is Tony DeAngelo. And a lot of people were soured on him because of the
personality
off field and his political views. And, I know he had racist or whatever it was. Yeah. Listen, I don't think he's a good dude, but at the end of the day, I'm always willing to give somebody, a second chance. It's not like he was out there like, it was stuff that he said. Okay. And people do that a lot. I mean, listen, you just saw a basketball player get knocked out in his
vice teammate, Jordan
practice.
Poole. Yeah.
I mean, there's worse things that we could have about a guy. I get it why people don't like him, maybe as they don't like him personally. But on the ice, he's a great player. He's an offensive defenseman, which is something that this team's lacked forever.
For a long time.
We brought in Ryan Ellis, who's kind of on the cusp of that. He's more of like the balanced defenseman, but Ryan Ellis hasn't played. I think he played
4 games, Jason. 4 games, and now Ristolainen heads to the injured list. So
but like I said, I think Tortorella at the end of the day is the difference, and it's exciting to see because, like I said, I think at this point, even if the Flyers were 0-3. I would still be happy because I see effort. And that's what I said.
But having that effort pay off in the win category is a different feel.
Bonus. Yeah,
exactly. 100%. It's a bonus. It's a different feel, right? So what is up with the Flyers? Flyers 3-0 to start the season. One of the NHL's best record or the NHL's best record. So we'll see how long this ride can continue. And, whenever I fill in for Phil here on Trending, we'll talk some Flyers. Who knows how long it'll take for him to get bought back into this team. But, Jason, a team that everyone is seemingly bought into to start the season, including myself, is the Philadelphia 76ers. And those Philadelphia 76ers are the one in the 7-1 statistic that I gave you at the beginning of the show, meaning the Philadelphia Sports are 7-1 since October 13th last week. The Sixers being the only loss. They fall to the Celtics last night, 126 to 117, I believe. A lot of people, of course, are freaking out. I think the fact that the Phillies won an NLCS game last night takes away from how much panic would already be on Sixers Twitter. Listen, there were positives, there were negatives. The bottom line is it's night 1. It was never going to look pretty with the new system. New players, new scheme, new roles, right? Boston is a damn good team defending Eastern Conference champions, and they were firing on all cylinders, dude. They shot almost 60% from the field in the second half. It's tough to beat that. Now, you can argue that's on the Sixers defensively, but still, Boston was unreal offensively last night, and the Sixers, for all these new pieces and these new roles and new bench pieces, scored almost 120 points on night one. This is the biggest takeaway. James mother effing Harden balling out last night, Jason. I don't know how much of the game you caught, but my man was aggressive from the three-point line. I think he knocked down 4. Let me check. I don't want to mess this up. I believe he made 5 of 9 from 3. He had 35, 8, and 7. Shot 9 of 14 from the field. He was 12 of 12 from the free throw line. Did have 3 turnovers, but a lot of the team had turnovers. That was one of the things I didn't like that I'll get to in a second with Joel Embiid. But Chili, let me tell you, man, it wasn't just the 3-point shooting from James Harden. There was that extra burst, that step where he was able to get around defenders in the lane and have an easy finish at the rim. He was taking guys off the dribble. He snatched Jason Tatum's ankles once or twice last night. Now, we all know he snatched someone's ankles, did the shimmy, and then bricked a three-pointer, which was a bad look. Mid-ranger, something we didn't think we were going to see out of James Harden this year. He's putting up mid-range jump shots again. So he was the number one most positive takeaway last night, Jason. The starters as a whole, here's the numbers. Joel Embiid had 26, 15, and 5 on 9 of 18 from the field. Tyrese Maxey gave you 21. We know what Harden gave you. Tobias Harris gave you 18 points on 50% shooting from the field. PJ Tucker added in 6 points. Here's the negatives. The bench, which I'm not worried about the depth in the bench, but that was the big storyline, right? The bench depth and the scoring off the bench. 5 points from DeAnthony Melton, 1 from Daniel House, 3 from George Niang, 2 from Montrezl Harrell. That's got to get fixed, correct? And it will. Again, I'm not one of those guys that are worried about it, but that was an obvious glaring negative last night, right? Joel Embiid was the other negative, in my opinion. He had 26, 15, and 5. He shot 50% from the field, 7 of 9 from the free throw stripe. My man took 6 threes. He went 1 of 6 from the free throw line. So not only is the percentage horrifying, Joel Embiid should never, ever, ever be taking 6 threes in a game. 2 or 3 is where Joe should be. 4, possibly, if he's hitting a few early. Other problem, Jason, 6 turnovers. Led the team in turnovers. And that was a problem before. And now, again, new system, new players around them. But just, Chili, tell me if you saw the same thing, man. It's not passing. It's not the passing lanes. It's not the passing out of a double team where he was picking up his dribble and he was double teamed in the corner. And we saw those old Joel Embiid turnovers. I love Joel putting the ball on the floor and creating for himself in isolation. My man, Jason, was putting the ball on the floor in the lane with 2 or 3 dudes collapsing around him. His first turnover was him running the fast break into 3 Boston defenders and just loses total control of the ball. You are 7'2". I know you have all the talent in the world. I know you're capable of putting the ball on the floor. I like it in isolation. I do not need you dribbling in the lane while 3 Boston Celtic defenders are collapsing around you. And don't tell me you can do it because you turned the ball over 6 times doing it last night. Joel Embiid, the numbers were there. He was good, but it didn't look like Joel Embiid on the floor last night.
So, obviously, I didn't see much of it because I was more focused on the Phillies, but I did kind of go back and forth, kind of looking and watching, and on my observations, obviously, I don't know if it would be wrong of me to say this, but James Harden looked like the James Harden of like 10 years ago. Like it looked like he was turned back the clock. James Harden.
Harden, spectacular.
I think if you're going to tell me that James Harden's going to play like this all year, I think this team's going to be special because I
agree.
Joel Embiid being a negative in this game, it's game 1. I'm sure Joel Embiid's going to have his good and bad games, but my point is if we're getting James Harden of like that, then I'm hyped about this team because, overall, like you could never even expect that he would be like that. Like to me, I was
35 was never we always say can he score 25?
Well, I thought if we got the James Harden of last year regular season, I was even saying that we would be good. We would be okay. The one negative that I do see with the Sixers, and I don't know if this is maybe just kind of an aberration because it's only one game sample, but it seems like the Sixers are a top-heavy roster compared to a team like the Celtics, where I see more balanced scoring. Now, I know they had two guys that had 35, but they had a couple guys that were in that mid-range too, whereas the Sixers really only had Harden, Maxey,
Harris,
and
Embiid.
and Harris.
Yeah.
And that's I guess that's my concern looking at it as, okay, maybe they're maybe their style and having that kind of a roster could hurt them. And I don't know. And I don't know much.
Well, here's the funny thing we talked about in the pregame show last night. So your observation from last night is correct. The Sixers bench, it seemed like the same old story. What were the numbers I read you? 5-3. The Sixers bench scored 10 points or 9 points last night, while the Celtics bench scored almost 30. That can't happen. The difference is that's where the depth, all the off-season acquisitions came in. So that will change. So I personally, the Sixers are a deeper team than the Boston Celtics, in my opinion. What you saw last night, I think, is going to turn out to be an anomaly. But that was a negative from last night. That was a reason the Sixers lost the game last night. You just can't have single-digit or 10 points from your entire bench unit. It can't happen, man. So when you have your top four playing the way they did, scoring, man, and they all shot efficiently. They all shot like 50% or above. But Boston, Malcolm Brogdon came off the bench and scored double digits. I believe Grant Williams had double digits, and a couple other guys contributed. So one guy in himself beat the Sixers bench scoring-wise. So that's a problem. And then you mentioned the lack of being able to defend Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown obviously showed last night. Thibault, man, he'll get some run, I'm assuming, in different scenarios this year. But I don't know how many days Matisse Thybulle has left in Philadelphia. He did not get a lot of playing time in the preseason. Obviously, last night he played for like all of 30 seconds at the end of the third quarter or second quarter or so for his defense. And they obviously did not reach that extension agreement, so he will enter free agency at the end of the year, which I think is a little bit telling. He's kind of like the 12th or 13th guy in the rotation at the moment. But last night, Kyle, you bring up a good point. Last night's one of those teams in Boston and with those wings where you question maybe he should have played a little bit, because who would he be guarding, Jason? One of Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown. Not saying he slows either down last night. Both were in their bag last night, but if I'm Doc, you at least have to try it. But the Sixers all around, outside of James Harden and their top four scoring the ball, did not look great in the opener. But again, PJ Tucker, being the veteran leader that he is, preaching patience after the game. They did score 117 points with all the new guys and with the bench not really scoring. So that's a plus, right? The Sixers turned the ball over. I forget how many times. Embiid had 6 himself. It translated to 22 Boston points, Jason. Like that, like bench scoring, turnover, transition points, wing defending, all problems of last year. Game 1, you got to hope Doc and company will clean up. And I think they will. But here's the thing. The road don't get no easier on Thursday. You come home and you get to play Giannis and the Bucks. So you get another test to answer right back. And I think they'll show up, man. So you will not be on trending tomorrow morning, correct?
No, not tomorrow.
So I'll ask you this right now. Do the Sixers bounce back tomorrow night at home in their home opener against the Milwaukee Bucks?
Yeah, I think this crowd will be jacked up, especially if the Phillies win today and go up 2-0. I think that crowd will be insane, and I wouldn't be surprised. Obviously, there's going to be some Eagles courtside, and you'll have that whole
possibly some Phillies.
Yeah, you never know. I don't know. Being that they're in this playoffs, they might not want to be like
We'll see.
In that, you don't know. Could be maybe Bryce Harper. That would be funny if Bryce Harper rang the bell. Or Kyle Schwarber.
Oh, that would be awesome. You got to figure they're going to get at least, or Jalen Hurts or Nick Sirianni. Someone on either of those two teams are going to ring the bell, I'd assume.
Yeah, I think Sixers win tomorrow. I mean, if I had to give a score prediction, I don't know, maybe around the same score as last night. Maybe they score 125 and Milwaukee scores 110 or something like that.
So, last couple of minutes of the show, kind of wrapping up with a topic that we like to discuss year round when our Philly teams just aren't that close. What do we always say, Jason? Which team's closest to winning a championship, right? Or which team? We're sitting in a position now. I know we just had. Excuse me. I'm gonna leave the Flyers out of this conversation for the time being. Sixers, Eagles, and Phillies. Normally, they're all pretty far away, but which team has the best shot? And it's always the Sixers, right? Phillies are in the NLCS. Eagles are 6-0 into the bye. And the Sixers obviously are 0-1, but have all these expectations around them. I know what the answer has to be because one of them is 3 wins away from making a championship appearance. But in your mind, what team on paper, not the team of destiny stuff we're talking about, on paper, the roster, who's closest?
That's a great question. I mean, I'm gonna say.
Listen, I get it. We have to say the Phillies. They're in the NL freaking CS. They won game 1. But my point is,
when you watch the Phillies out of the equation, being that they're there, because I think it's hard to do that with them there, where they're at. I mean, obviously they're about to.
Right.
I could do it. Yeah. I'm gonna say the Eagles. I just, and the reason for that is that I think Jalen Hurts has shown that he's went to that next level. Like, he's playing on another level that I don't think a lot of people ever expected. I'm not going to even lie. I don't know if I even expected him. I thought he would improve. I don't think I ever was one of them people saying, oh my God, Jalen Hurts is going to be like
not this, man.
Because I know there are some people out there that were, and you know what? Kudos to them for seeing it or believing it. We're going out on a limb and just saying it. But I think the Eagles, I just think they're the most balanced team in the NFL. Like, even the AFC teams I look at, like, have some flaws. Like, obviously, if it was Eagles, Bills, that would be probably the best Super Bowl that
we could draw up. Yeah.
Have. But I don't know. And maybe this is my lack of knowledge of basketball, but there's something for me that's missing from the Sixers. But I'll preface it by saying if James Harden plays like he played yesterday or last night, that I think Sixers could go all the way this year too. Like, it's so crazy.
I only bring it up because, and I'm joking off of the 0-1 start, because the Sixers, realistically, for the last, I don't know, 2-3 years, have been the first pillar, the pedestal right here in Philadelphia of the highest chances, the best team. They got the superstar with Joel Embiid, and obviously they traded for James Harden last year. They're the team closest, and it's crazy to think they could possibly be leaped by not one Philly team, 2. And obviously we're not even talking about the team in the center of this screen up top, because I'm not well equipped enough, and I don't believe you're well equipped enough to talk about the Union, because they are a 1 seed and they start the playoffs tomorrow, I believe. So they could be the first team in the city to win a championship, and the Eagles or the Sixers could be 4th. I'm joking off of the 0-1 start, but it is definitely a fun time to be a Philly sports fan. If the number 1 team heading into all seasons drops to the 3rd or 4th team in terms of championship realization, that's pretty crazy to me. And they still have a chance to be in that conversation as well. They will be in that conversation as the year moves forward. Jason, I think we are going to wrap up this Wednesday edition of Trending in the AM here live on DSM Media's Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter channels. You guys know the drill. If you're new to the channel, head on over to @DSM_media on Twitter. Hit that follow button. Check out the link tree in our bio. It'll take you to every other social platform we are available on. We're also on Instagram, TikTok, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all that great stuff. We have a TeePublic site up there as well with DSM and Philly sports merch. Hit that subscribe button on the YouTube channel. Help us reach our goal of 700 subscribers. We appreciate each and every one of you. Check our friends out over at Gents, barberlounge.com, and our friends over at Luxon Jewelers at shopluxon.com. Use promo code DSM for 25% off your total checkout. Again, it's promo code DSM, all capital letters, for 25% and free shipping your total checkout. For myself, for Jason, for DSM Media, have a great rest of your night, and go Fightins.
Ring the bell.